the complexity of the pattern depends on how many of those you can handle at the same time, differently. And again, as Stanley has pointed out, here all those threads are divided into 4, and therefore he has 4 treadles to activate them. But with only that permutation, he's rather limited to what he can do. And people were looking now to find a way how they could perhaps even handle one single thread, control one single thread. And at the side of the loom in medieval time, a boy would sit with a lot of strings, and at the instruction of the weaver he would say, pull string number 1, pull string number 2. So as you sat there, you had control over more and more threads. When it came to part mechanical weaving, it was a bit more difficult, because as he said, you had to have a treadle for each of these helves. And Norton Brothers, which were a famous firm locally, as you might have heard, did have weavers who could handle 12 treadles. Now you imagine yourself having to handle 12 treadles in the right order. One mistake, the cloth had been made a mistake. But they did that. They had what they call 12 treadle jobs. But there's always looking for some way of improving it. The medieval method was a boy called a draw boy to handle each thread separately, and you could weave anything in that because a second handle each thread. But then we come, which is very important to Skelmanthorpe, with being a textile place, the weavers were looking to find some way of doing that automatically. And we do find here the production of what is called a witch. And I've tried to find the background of it, same for the invention papers and all that, registration of invention, but according to local folklore, it's even older than that. And they were made by a firm called Wilkinson's up at Gully Flats, and they were known as the Wilkinson Dobby. Now, this is really the first computer, because what they did, they still use these elves, but they did away with the 4 treadles and put 1 treadle, 1 single treadle. And the selection of these elves was done by putting pegs in what they call the lag, and that went round this and activated, as the man treadled 1 treadle, it activated the helve that he wanted. And that was really the beginning of the prosperity of this valley, because it opened up fancy weaving. Now, as I say, you probably know your history, but not long after the French always beat us to it, they came up with the jacquard, based practically on the same principles, but now could handle much, much more difficult problems. Up to 400 ends, they could handle 400 ends, where we were talking about perhaps 32. So they now made a machine that could actually weave any pattern they wanted. And this opened the door. If you're interested, you can see some of the patterns. I'll show you superior one. Now that is woven.
Now you might want that twisting around too.
Really?
So you can see how fine they could weave.